Hello everyone, it's Frank Balinski again here with today's topic, which is the dual-COM communicator. This is a communicator for fire alarm systems. The most important points of the presentation will be the key functions of the device, the product models, details about the hardware, and programming. Let's see which are the application areas for the product. As I have mentioned, this is a communicator for fire alarm systems based on IP communication. It can be used basically with any control panel which has contact outputs, or where contact outputs can be created with relays that have dry contacts. The key functions of the device, well, this is a contact-controlled communicator with dry contact inputs. State change of the inputs will generate events to which you can assign actions, such as reporting to a central monitoring station and output control. The two modems built in enable the device to guarantee a high reporting reliability. Using the two independent modems and two SIM cards from different mobile service providers, the device sends the reports to the central monitoring stations simultaneously through the two independent networks, thereby meeting the requirements of the related regulations. The device has 6 configurable normally open and normally closed dry contact inputs with the end-of-line resistor option. This is expandable to 30 inputs using the X24D expansion module, which you can also find in our product range here in the accessories. Okay, so this one has 24 inputs and plus the 6 inputs of the device, altogether 30 inputs. Let me go back to the dual-COM. So the end-of-line resistors enable you to use the loop protection option on the inputs. There are also 6 configurable relay outputs, which are normally open here. These can be controlled by events configured in the device. You can configure output control for any event with various control modes, and you can add even more than one control action per event. The device can send reports over the internet to up to 4 IP receivers using the DC09, the Telmon, or the TEX protocol. The last two are encrypted TEL protocols, which can be used with TEL receivers only. And last but not least, you can configure a contact ID event code for each event, including the partition and the zone number. Let's check the product models. Currently, we have the 2G version of the product, and a 4G version is being developed, which we will release in about a month. We also have the X24 version. So this comes with the device and the X24D expansion module. Or you can buy the device in a kit version. This comes with a metal box and with a power supply designed by TEL. And the next one is the X24D kit version, which comes with the same box, with the same power supply, and with the expansion module. Now let's check the hardware itself. So here you can see the 6 contact inputs. The device also has a RS-232 serial port, which can be used to connect the expansion module. On the right side, you can see the relay outputs, 6 pieces. You have here the power input, which is 9 to 30 volts. But basically, if the voltage goes below a critical level, which is around 10 volts, the device will switch off and it will turn back on when it receives 12 volts or above. There is also a protection against high voltage with a polyfuse, so it can resist to an over voltage up to 30 volts. About the installation, for an easy installation, we recommend the kit variant, which comes with the metal housing and the uninterruptible power supply produced by TEL. On our website, if you scroll down, you can find in the download section the latest software and the firmware of the device. Also, the manual will be available soon because this is the latest release which we have just released. So in this section, you will also find the manual. Now, let's check the programming. We have a programming software which can be used through USB and through the internet with up to 3 connection modes. So you can connect to the device through the TextMVP server if you are using the TextMVP server, through the Telmon if you are using the Telmon receiver, or through the cloud. If you are using a DC09 receiver, you can only use the cloud to connect to the device remotely, since the DC09 protocol does not support remote programming of devices. In order to connect to the device, you need the password. There are 2 passwords in the device, an admin and a super admin level. The super admin default password is 1, 2, 3, and 4, which you have to enter here, and then hit enter key or press the connect button. So we see that we are connected because the connect button is unavailable now, so we can only disconnect, and the logs also show that we are connected with the super admin level access. After connecting, you can add an admin password, or you can change the super admin password, which is highly recommended. The admin password is not set by default. If you use the admin password, the admin user can only access the settings which do not include the identifiers of the device. So the admins cannot change the identifiers in the device. Here you can also restart the device if necessary or reset the default settings. This option is available also without knowing the device password in case that the device is not locked in the settings. You can lock the device in the settings here in the advanced settings menu with this option here. Now you see it's unlocked. So if you change this to locked, you can only restore the default settings if you log in with the superadmin password and change this back to unlocked. Next is the device register, which you can use to register your devices which you have programmed. To register a device, just click on the Add New button. And if your device is connected through USB, the program will automatically read the SIM identifiers, the ICC IDs of the SIM cards, and the device ID, which is necessary for connecting through the cloud. And if you have the Telmon receiver, you can also configure the availabilities of this. The IP address, the port number, and you need the device ID, which is already read from the device because it's connected through USB. And now we see that this is green, so we have successfully configured this option as well. We just have to add a name. And save. When this is done, we disconnect from USB and we are ready to connect through the cloud. You just have to select the device which you have added in the device register. We can see that we have the Telmon and the cloud option configured for this device. The text connection is not available. So we want to connect through the cloud. The password is the same and click connect. Okay, so we see that we are connected over the cloud with the superadmin level access. Thereafter, you can read and write the settings just as usual when you are connected through USB. Okay, if you want to connect through the Telmon, you have to do the same. Just select the device. You have already the pre-configured settings here and click connect after you have entered the password. Now, for the connection through the Telmon, you have to wait until the device sends a supervision message, because with this protocol, the device automatically closes the TCP connection after sending a message. So there is no continuous connection between the device and the Telmon. The device will only connect to the Telmon receiver when it wants to send a message. So we have to wait for the supervision message, which is currently set to a 90 seconds interval, or for any other message that the device sends. So now we have to wait at most 90 seconds, but I hope it won't be that much. Yeah. Okay, so a supervision message has been received, and now we are connected through the Telmon. Let's go back to the USB connection because it's a little bit faster. Let's see which are the basic settings which you have to configure to put the device in operation. You find the device settings in the general device settings menu. First, you have to configure the APN for both SIM cards, SIM card A and SIM card B, which you have installed here. See, it's SIM A and SIM B. The APN is the access point name, which is necessary for the SIM cards to connect to the mobile internet. You can get this from the service provider where you have purchased the SIM cards. Sometimes a username and a password is also required. This is also supplied by the mobile service provider of the given SIM card. If you want to log the SIM card with a PIN code, just enable PIN code request on the SIM card using the mobile phone and enter the SIM PIN here. You can configure a periodic test report, just like in alarm control panels. Here you can configure the interval of sending. If this is set to 24 hours, you can also configure the time of day for sending. But if it's set to, let's say, 2 hours, in that case, you don't have the time of day because it will send by 2 hours interval. So the maximum is 24 hours for this setting. The cloud usage should be enabled if you want to access the device through the cloud. If this option is disabled, the device will never connect to the cloud. But in that case, of course, you can't access the device through the cloud, only if you ask the device to connect to the cloud by SMS. There is a command for that, an SMS command. But if you enable cloud usage, you can select which SIM card to be used for this type of connection. Cloud usage involves data usage of about 12 megabytes per month due to the supervision messages sent to the cloud in order to keep the continuous connection. In this section, you can configure the thresholds for low voltage and low voltage restore service events. Depending on which voltage level you are using. If you are using 12 volts, in that case, this is okay, 11.5 for low voltage and 12.5 for restore. Of course, if you are using a 24 volt power supply, you have to change this accordingly. The system time, the device can set from NTP servers, if you configure the NTP servers here. Or it can also set the system time from the receivers, which you configure. The system time is necessary for the event logs. So the events are associated with timestamps based on the current time. And also the time zone should be configured according to the place of installation. If you are using the X24D expansion module, you have to enable the usage here. Otherwise, in the settings, you will not see the inputs of the expansion module. So if you don't enable this, let's close the software and I will show you what happens. You have here an offline device selector, and if you click on that, the program will load the default settings, and you can configure any settings and then save to file and later load back from file. And when you connect to the device, you can write the already configured settings in the device. Now, if you connect only the Dualcomm and you don't enable the expansion module, in that case, for the inputs, you can only see the 6 inputs of the device, and also in the events menu, you can only see the 6 events, alarm and restore. But if you enable the expansion module, in that case, you will also see the inputs of the expansion module, and also in the events, the expansion module events will be available. Now I will connect back to the device. First you need to do is read the settings from the device. Then you can change these settings and write back the changed settings into the device in order to apply the changes. Next important thing is the admin phone number. The device will accept SMS commands from the phone number entered in this section. There are a few settings which you can also configure by SMS. You can find the list of SMS commands in the user's manual of the device. The SMS forwarding phone number is for forwarding the messages received by the SIM cards to the number entered in this section. And you can also limit SMS forwarding. So if many messages are received by the SIM cards, this limitation will work, so it won't cause high expenses for resending the messages. But of course, in that case, messages received after the limit is reached will be automatically cancelled and deleted, so you won't receive those messages. Only next day when the counter will be reset automatically. In the reporting channels menu, you can configure the 4 IP addresses for the receivers. You can add a name for the receivers, the IP address, the port number. You can select the protocol you want to use, the text, the Telmon, or the DC09. You can configure the user identifier, which is used to send the messages with the contact ID codes. Supervision message cannot be disabled for the Telmon and the text protocol because this is required. But you can disable it for the DC09 protocol if you want. Of course, it is not recommended because for fire alarms, it is necessary to know whether you have the connection with the device or not. And this is done by the supervision messages. Okay, next section, you can configure the supervision message interval, which is currently set to 90 seconds. Of course, you can also select minutes and hours, but the regulation in Hungary is 90 seconds at least. In the time zone section, you can select the UTC or local time. This is the setting for the timestamp which is sent by the receiver to the device. So whether the receiver sends the timestamp in UTC or in local time. Next, you can change the network protocol to TCP or UDP. UDP uses less data, but TCP is more secure. We recommend that you use TCP, of course. For the DC09 setting, you also have the account prefix option. The number entered in this section will be added in front of the user account ID. So now the user account ID will be 126666, and the supervision messages will be sent to the given receiver with this account ID, but not the alarm messages. The alarm messages will still be sent with this account ID only. Yes, we have talked about this, and you also have here the encryption key. So if you want to encrypt the communication, you can enter the encryption key here. Of course, you have to use the same encryption key on the receiver side in order to decrypt the messages. And send each message in a new session option is required by some receivers. So if your receiver requires this setting, you can enable that. Now I don't want to change any settings, so I will read back the settings from the device. Okay. So you see that we have here two categories: the reporting to CMS for SIM-A interface and reporting to CMS for SIM-B interface. This means that from SIM card A, reports will be sent to these two receivers, while for from SIM card B, reports will be sent to these two receivers. The primary and backup servers you can configure here in the notification templates menu. So here you only have to add the receivers, and then in this section you can configure which to be primary and which to be backup. The default notification template is associated by default with all events in the device. So they will send reports to the monitoring station using this notification template. But of course, you can select a different notification template for any event later. But if you want to configure each event with the same notification template and you want to change the priorities, you just have to do it here. So we have the 4 IP addresses, and you can select which to be the primary and which to be the... In this case, for SIM A, we will have a primary and a backup, and for SIM B, see here, we will have also a primary and a backup server. Of course, you can add your custom templates as well as you want, so you can do this as well. Now, next is the inputs, where you can configure the properties of the contact inputs. So we have here the 6 inputs of the Dualcomm device and the 24 inputs of the expansion module. You see that numbering is from 1 to 6 and then from 1 to 24. This one. Okay. And zone numbering goes from 1 to 6 and then continues from 7 to 30. So just be aware that input 1 of the expansion module uses zone number 7. Of course, you can also change the partition numbers and zone numbers by just double-clicking on the given input or selecting it and clicking on the edit button. You can add a custom name to each input according to the function you are using it for. You can change the type, normally open or normally close. If you are using the end-of-line resistor for loop protection, you can enable the end-of-line resistor on the given input. And here you can change the partition number and the zone number used by the given input. Also changing the sensitivity for new events and restore events is available in milliseconds, seconds, and minutes. And you can do the same, of course, for inputs of the expansion module. Now, events of the device are divided in 3 categories. We have input events, tamper events, which are the loop protection events, and service events. The first 2 categories are related to the inputs, while the service events are related to the operation of the device. Now let's see the input events. For each event, you have an alarm and a restore event. If you double click on the given event or select it and click on edit button, you can change the name of the given event if you want. And in this section, you can select the input and type, but you don't need to change that because one type of event can only be used for one input and one input type. But this is available for the case when you delete events, because you can also delete these events if you want, so if you don't use them. And if you want to use them later, you have to add them again to the software. And in case of adding them, you have to select which input and which type of event you want to add. In this section here, you can see the actions associated with the input. So when you select an input, let's say alarm on input number 2, in the actions menu, you can see the action associated with the given event. A reporting event is associated with each event. So you can change the reporting action here in this section by selecting it and clicking on edit action, or by double clicking on that row. Here you can change the name of the given action if you want, and that's where you can select the notification template for that particular event. So if you select a different notification template, in that case, that particular event will be sent to the monitoring station using that template. So the priorities of the servers will be those which are configured in the given template. Here in the event code section, you can change the contact ID event code for the given event, but you can't change the partition number and zone number because that's not available here for inputs. That's available here in the input settings, as I have shown you earlier. Okay, so let's go back, input number 2 and action. With the question mark button, you can open the event code search tool, where you can search for events by name or by code as well. So let's say if you are searching for fire alarm events, see now each input event uses 110, which is the fire alarm. And if you want to search by event code, you can also do that. For example, AC loss is 301. So this tool will help you select the appropriate event code for the task you want to use the input for. These options are available for each types of events. So tamper events can be configured the same way. You can change the name of the event, and you can select the action for the given event. See, this event uses 370, which is the loop protection alarm. If you have deleted this action by accident, you can add it again using the new action button. If you click on this button, an action will be added to the event selected in the list. So make sure that you select the appropriate event first. Now let's add an input event action here for input number 2. Let's say activate relay number 5. So there are 2 types of action, reporting and output control. From reporting actions, you can add only 1 per event, but output control actions, you can add any number to an event. So for example, let's configure this event to control output number 5. You can select different output control modes like time. For that, you can select how long the relay should be activated. This is available in milliseconds, seconds, and minutes. Or permanent on, off, even state change. So when this action occurs, the given relay will change its state. If it was on, it will turn off. If it was off, it will turn on. And impulse series is also available, where you can configure up to 3 impulse series, how long the relay should stay on, then how long it should stay off, how many times to repeat these actions, and how much to wait between repetitions. The unit of measure is also available for each setting. And with this, you can configure 3 different impulse series. Okay, let's use bistable on. Okay. Of course, as I have mentioned, we can also add another control to control, let's say, output number 2 as well. So it depends on the task you have to solve. With this button, you can delete an action if necessary. Okay, and let's configure input number 15 to turn the relay off. Output control relay number 5 and turn off. Okay. And we have to write the changes back in the device in order to take effect. So as I have mentioned, the same settings are available for the service events as well. Here we have service events for expansion module error, which means that if there is a communication failure with the expansion module, this event will be generated. We have GSM error for both interfaces, new alarm and restore. Mobile internet error for both interfaces, also new alarm and restore. The low supply voltage event and restore, and the periodic test report event. Also, a reporting action is added to each event, and you can see that the contact ID code changes. So each event uses the appropriate contact ID code, which you can of course change if you want. So just select the given service event, double the reporting action, and here you can change the event code. For service events, you can also change the partition and the zone number as well, because these are not related to the inputs. So partition and zone configuration is available for service events. Now this one, for example, uses event code 302, which should be the battery fault or AC. Yes, it's the low battery event. And the periodic test report uses 602, which is the periodic test report event. Okay, let's see how the device works. Now I have here on my table a demo, which I will show you right away. This is it. So this is the X24D kit version. It has the X24D expansion module mounted with the Dualcomm module and connected through the serial interface. And I have a push button on input number 2 of the Dualcomm with a switch which I can use to open the protection loop, so we can also generate a temper alarm. You can see that the end-of-line resistor is also connected, so it can generate temper alarms. We have the 2 SIM cards from different providers, and on the other side we have also a push button on input 15 of the expansion module, which is zone 21, because it's 15 plus 6. Okay, with the UPS power supply designed by TEL, which can also manage the battery. Let me show you also the receivers. We have 2 receivers here, which are configured in the device. Now I have configured event sending to both receivers from, let me show you here. Yeah, so this is receiver 1 here. So both interfaces will send the messages to receiver 1 and receiver 2, still from both interfaces, which means that I should receive 2 messages on the same receiver from the device. Now let's make an alarm from input number 2. We can see that relay number 5 has also activated according to the configuration. And here it is, fire alarm from zone number 2 and restore from zone number 2. The same here. And now let's make an alarm on zone 21, which is input 15. This should turn the relay off, if you remember. And yes, it works. And here are the messages, alarm and restore from zone 21, and the same here on the other receiver. And now let's make a temper event. So we will open the protection loop. And there it is. Protection loop events and protection loop restore events. You can also see the status of the inputs and outputs here in the status monitoring menu. If you scroll down, here are the inputs of the device, the inputs of the expansion module, the outputs of the device, and the status of the receivers, the 4 receivers. So just stay here. Okay. So if you activate an input, you can see that it is activated, also output number 5. And if you activate the other input here, it's input 15, and the relay turns off. And for the loop protection, you can see the tamper event here for input number 2. Okay, still here in the status monitoring menu, you can find the actual firmware version of the device, the model, the device ID, the SIM identifiers, which you can copy using these icons here, the current supply voltage, and in the counter section, the current system time, the device uptime, so how long the device has been on, the IP uptime, and the GSM uptime, which means how long the given SIM card has been connected to the mobile internet and how long the given SIM card has been connected to the GSM network. You can also see the operators for both SIM cards, the GSM signal, and the IP addresses of the SIM cards, and also the cloud connection status. In the event monitoring section, you can follow the events. You can also stop pending alarms if you want, and you can save the list to file. Now, in order to see the events, you have to choose how many events you want to see, all, last 10, last 20, and then click on the button. And the software will read the events from the device. Now we see that these events have been generated with these event codes, and they were sent successfully to all 4 receivers. So for example, if we generate now an event and another one, you see that it tries to report, and as soon as reporting is completed, everything should turn green. If there is an action configured for an event, you can also see the action here at the bottom. So for input number 2, for example, we have configured the relay action. So we can see that here that it was successful. And if you remember, we have done the same for input 15, and there is the action successful relay off. In the system event logs, the software can read system events from the device, and in the system logs can read the system logs. This is used, both are used for troubleshooting. So if there is a problem with the device, we will ask you to send the logs, the system event logs or the system logs. Here you can also create detailed logs by turning AT logging on. This will also show the AT commands on the given modem. So if we turn this on and this on, the AT commands will also appear here. These details will help us to investigate the problem. Here you can see information about the communication of the module. So it sends the supervision messages and receives the acknowledgement signals from the receivers. Okay, logs are saved automatically by the software in a file which you can open by clicking on this link, on the data folder link found in the About menu. Here you can see the logs folder, and here the logs are stored with the given date. There is a remoter and a module log. The remoter refers to the software and the module log refers to the device logs. In the settings menu, you can also enable extended logging for troubleshooting. This refers to the software. So if there is a problem with the software, with reading, writing, or anything else, we used to ask you to enable this, because this will create logs with more details for us. But you should not enable this only if we need that, because the file will increase if this is enabled, so it will occupy the space on the hard drive. Okay. In this section, you can change the appearance of the software. So you can choose out of lots of templates here.